I'm your host, Myles. This is your co host, Neal. And today we're just going to have a conversation about the idea of obsession um, and balance. And if that is, I guess, really required to be able to get to where you ultimately want to get to and to execute at the highest level, right? Um, so I guess I'll open it up, Neal, and I'll ask you first. Do you feel that having an extreme level of obsession is a prerequisite to be able to be successful in whatever endeavor that you're chasing?
Yeah, I think the distinction you made at the beginning is the ultimate answer to the question because getting to where you want to get to and then being hyper successful, or it could be two different things. It could be the same thing, but for some
Mm,
people, so if it's to be hyper successful, or because success could be subjective, if it's to be elite at something, or if you're like a high achiever, I feel like it is a prerequisite. It is a
mm,
necessity because it's going to be a necessity if you are, attempting to be a high achiever, just off the fact that anybody else that you're competing with is going to be obsessed, or the people at the top are going to be obsessed, so if you're looking to get an edge, you're not going to have it if you are, on a moderate scale, where it's something that you do on a part-time basis, because the people that you're going up against aren't doing it on a part-time basis, so
let me let me challenge that, bro. Let me challenge that because in theory, is it not possible that someone, because at the end of the day, this is all about output. And the reason why people, are advocates of being obsessed and hyper focused is input to output ratio, you know? So let me ask you, do you feel that it's possible that some people get more output when they are when they have more balance? So for example, let's say you have person A, person B. Person A works, I don't know, 16-hour days.
mhm.
They operate at an 8 out of 10 in terms of capacity for those 16 hours. And then they get a certain amount of output. Let's say you have person B who works 8 hours a day, but they're operating at a 10. And their output and then they have a certain amount of output. Do you think it's possible that people that have more balance and are putting, they structure their lives in a way where it's not as hyper focused, but they get more output? Do you think that's possible, or do you think that's not even really realistic?
It's possible, but you're not going to outperform the person who's performing at a high level and also doing it for longer than you.
Mm,
You know, that's
yeah,
what,
yeah,
and that's what, like, it's not a, if we say obsession is a necessity, a prerequisite, I don't think everybody's capable of living a life like that, because it comes at a lack of balance, right? And for some
it comes at a
people,
cost, right?
it comes at a cost, right? Like, you can't be good at everything. If you are very good at something, it probably means that you're extremely deficient in other areas. Like, it's just how it's gonna be.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like, you can live an effective life and be successful by having a balanced life,
Right.
but it's only at the fringes of, like, anything that's like competitive, where you're going to need to be obsessive, because the people that you're going up against are doing that. If you're in a business deal with somebody and you can only do, an hour or two of due diligence a day for the week that you have going up to the deal, but you're going up against somebody who's spending 10 hours every single night,
Mm.
like, they
Huh.
may be able to, yeah, they may be able to get a little bit more out of the deal than you thought was possible, or they may be, if they may even be the shark in that case, and you're
Mm.
just getting demolished because you thought, oh yeah, I'll be good. And the thing is, you can be effective doing that. You can be effective over a long horizon, only doing being consistent, because consistency is the important part, and that's where
Right.
like the burnout's a real risk if you have that personality trait. But the
No, you go ahead.
yeah,
You go ahead.
yeah, the few people that are able to sustain that level of focus and like maniacal obsession over a long period of time, it's honestly it's game over. Like you
A
can't even
wrap.
do anything.
Yeah. And yeah, you sparked something just now. So I'm reading a great book. I'm not sure if you read it before, but it's called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mhm,
Fire book. You just hit on one of the key points that I'm actually reading about right now, which is the idea of um, the author. His name's Stephen Covey, and he talks about the concept of P and PC balance. P standing for production, PC stands for production capability. And he talks about how that is the essence of being effective. If we define being effective as as being able to complete the desired outcome, right? To achieve a desired result and do it successfully, then his whole concept is that you cannot that effectiveness lies in the balance between the production and production capability. I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a factory. You're right. You're a business owner. You're running a factory. You can, if you are putting all your emphasis on production. Let's say you create, I don't know. Let's say you produce sneakers, and if you put all your emphasis and your focus on the sneakers that the machine, the production capability is producing, then for some point, at some point, you could be at a great in a great position. But if you are neglecting actually caring for that machine, doing the maintenance on that machine, making sure that it's inspected and it's up to code, and it's getting the care that is required to actually produce the outcome to actually create the product, then that's not going to be effective. So the whole idea that he tries to put forth is effectiveness lies in the balance, because if you focus only on the outcome, on the product,
mhm,
then you're going to neglect the machine, and then you're not going to be able to produce anymore.
mhm,
Likewise, I mean, on the other hand, if you focus exclusively on caring for the machine and you don't focus at all on what it's actually producing, then you're not going to be a business, because all your money is just going to go into the upkeep of this machine, and it's not going to
mhm,
be able to actually produce for you. And this is a principle that can be applied to organizations, to people, to individuals. And another example that he gives is one that you just touched on, which is the burnout. That's why I brought this up, because if what allows you to get that production, let's say the production in this case is the output, the hours of work that you're putting in, but that production capability, which is in this case the person actually putting in the work, if that's not cared for and you get the burnout, that's simply not effective. If you're working for 18 hours a day for 3 months, but that pushes you to the point where the production capability, which is the person, you're burned out and you have to take 6 months off because you're in the hospital for whatever reason, that's simply not effective. If you
mhm,
compare that to someone who is able to strike that balance between making sure that, okay, instead of working 16-hour days, maybe they can handle 10 hours a day, but they can do that consistently and they can churn out that output for years at a time without having to take a whole bunch of breaks. That's going to be a lot more effective. So right when you said that, it just got my mind thinking about how important knowing yourself is. I think you bring up a really good point, which is knowing what you're able to handle and being able to operate within that in a manner that is actually going to be effective for you on a long-term basis.
yeah. The burnout's a good point. I guess when I think about, maybe we should start with what do you think about, like, how would you define a obsession, and how do you feel like it gets, like, how does somebody use it?
Yeah, I think when I When I think about obsession, I think about maniacal, almost maniacal hyper focus. But the main thing being hyper focus.
Mhm.
And I think, to me, it can take on different forms, but at its essence, it is locking in to something and making that your only priority, or the number one priority, keeping the main thing, and being very clear and very intentional about how you're going to spend your time, your energy, and your resources to achieve a specific outcome.
And do you think that the inevitable result is burnout, or do you think that somebody can sus like live a life where they're hyper focused on a single thing and never burn out?
I think for sure, I definitely don't think it's inevitable. I think for sure, there are people who can live lives of hyper focus and not burn out. And I think that's a function of one of two things. I think it's a function of, one, how much do they enjoy and get energized by, because how much do they get energized by the thing that they're putting the time towards? Because of
Hmm.
burnout, from what I understand, that's coming from a lack of energy, because a depletion of energy is what burnout is. But if you're getting energized by this thing more than it is taking away from you, I think it's going to be
Hmm.
pretty difficult to get burnt out.
Yeah, so that's exactly my line of thinking
Mm.
when that conversation happens, where again, it's like not everybody can sustain or like be at the highest level of any field, but yeah, for some people, like that's just they get energy from it, right? They get
Yeah, yeah,
energized from it. There's any of their free time, like in my opinion, you can't compete with somebody who, when they're not doing the thing, they're still doing the thing. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
if you are at a basketball training camp with, for the summer, and you guys are both 10 years old, but when you leave, you're doing something else, and when the other kid leaves, he's at home envisioning the free throw routine, or
Hmm.
taking shots in his head, or going over the thing, or he's just watching basketball highlights, trying to see Kyrie
Yeah.
do something and do it in his head. Like, you're not competing with that guy
No,
because
you're cooked. You're cooked.
he's still doing it. If
Yeah.
he's going to sleep with the thing in his mind, and his mind's working, and he's waking up better because of it, you may still have put in the same amount of hours, in terms of you guys still worked out for 3 hours a day.
But that's
Okay,
not the same. Yeah, that's
it's not the
physically
same
maybe. No, not even
physically, but
close.
if he's thinking about it for 16 hours out of the day, and you're working out for three, and maybe thinking about it for an hour or two, like even over a summer. It's like, just how much more time?
You're
How
not
much
gonna.
more time is that?
Yeah, the gap is gonna get too. It's gonna get too big to catch up to if that person sustains
Hmm.
that level of output. No, I completely agree. And I think the the other point in regards to burnout, I think, is like knowing what you want, knowing your limits, and knowing what you're capable of. Like, let's say someone wants to, they want to be rich, they want to make a lot of money, and they arbitrarily say, okay, I want to be a billionaire. Do you really want to put forth the amount of effort that is required for, the average person to become a billionaire? Do you really want to put forth those amount of hours, that amount of time that is required? Or is maybe being a millionaire more realistic for you personally? Or is making $80,000 a year more realistic for you purposely?
Hmm.
In terms of what it is that you are capable of, like, because everyone has different capacities, different outputs. Some people, physically and mentally, some people can jump 40 inches, some people can only jump 18. So why would that not translate to things like to mental capacity too? Some people can work 18-hour days consistently and still be okay. Some people can only work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day consistently and still be okay. So I feel I say that because I think that's another big part of why I don't think burnout is inevitable if you understand and you know your limits, you know what you're capable of, and you like I said before, like we spoke about before, you maintain that P and that PC balance. You make sure that the system, that the the machine, in this case the body that is able to actually get that production, is maintained. So
Hmm.
I think that not every machine is the same. Some require diesel, some require regular. You know what I mean? You just I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing.
No, that's a good point. I think it's kind of a tangent, but I mean it's tied to it. But the wanting something and then not like you wanting, if somebody claims to be want to be a millionaire, billionaire, like the idea of that is attractive, right? It's why people say
Hmm.
they want it all the time. But I think something that I've started to realize and adopt is like I don't find myself being jealous or envious of people as much anymore because I frame it like I look at it this way, right? Like either I don't know what they did to get to where they are
Hmm.
and I'm not willing to do it, or I do know and I'm willing to do it. So
Mm.
there's no room to really look at someone and be jealous anymore. It's either I look at them and I'm like, yeah, you went through some stuff that I'm not willing to go through, like good for you, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
it's you went through some stuff, I'm willing to go through it as well. So let me just go through it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's like the destination will be the same. Um, I don't know. What do you feel about that? You feel because the reason I say that is I feel like that jealousy, that envy space is when you exist in that, you can start to try to adopt an obsessive personality when it's not even who you are, you know? It may not
Hmm.
be you. Like you may not be that. It's not even a bad thing. It's just you may not be that. You may not be the person that's willing to sacrifice, burn every bridge, do everything in the negative side to reach your goals because you are somebody who values the other things. Like some people don't. Some people don't value the relationships in their lives. They don't
Hmm.
feel like they need it. They don't feel like they need to, have a constant circle of friends around them. Like there's a lot of stuff that the person that you're looking at doesn't have that you do. you know?
No, 100%, 100%. I think that's, yeah, I think that's a really, I don't know if it's something that comes with age, because I've definitely realized that as well as I've gotten older and a bit more mature. I think really taking time to consider what is what's required for that outcome, and just being really honest with yourself about what you are and what you aren't willing to do. Like I could tell you right now, like I very much believe, I know, and I'm very confident that I am going to be a millionaire, and I am going to put in the work that's required to do that. I can also very confidently tell you, it is nowhere even it's nowhere on my list of goals to become a billionaire. Would that be great? Yeah, but am I willing to lock into the amount of effort that I think is actually going to be required to become a billionaire? No, I'm not. Straight. Like I can tell you that right now.
I think
So
to be honest though, I don't even know if it's an effort thing, bro. I think like to get 2 billion, it's just a scale and it's not luck in the sense that the people that like they're lucky, but it's some element of chance that they struck on the right thing at the right time.
for
Because
sure, for
yeah,
sure. Maybe that was, yeah, and maybe
I
'cause,
think millions to like hundreds of millions is
yeah,
where
yeah.
because
I
like
don't,
billion
yeah,
billion
yeah,
is just it's
yeah.
crazy.
And I don't operate in that, obviously, that world enough to know. But yeah, no, that's a good example. Let's say like a nine-figure earner, or like, yeah, let's say being in that 1 to 10 million dollar range, as opposed to being in that $200 million range. Like the
Yeah,
amount of effort that would be, in my mind, and maybe this is a limiting belief, I don't know, but in my mind, the amount of effort that would be required to scale to that level is going to be substantial. Maybe it's not. I'm sure for some people they can keep some of the same systems and still scale it, but
yeah.
um I'm just saying, I guess at the end of the day, I'm saying, I know for me, maintaining that balance in my life, that work life balance, is not something that I'm willing to give up long term. So any number that I could potentially get to, if it's going to require me to not have a work life balance, that I feel I can look back when my son's older when my family's older and I can be like, nah, I'm comfortable with that, with the amount of time that I put forth and that I was around. If it doesn't fit into that, I don't care. Like there's no amount of money that's gonna
Mm-hmm.
allow that to be attractive to me, So
Yeah.
um yeah, yeah. Um there was something else I wanted to mention. Um it's funny, I don't know. It's funny that we happen to be talking about obsession. Because I've noticed, I'll give you I know you've always been like that. You've always been super hyper focused and locked into what you're trying to do. So maybe you can give your perspective on it after as well. But I know for me, this is something that's been recent for me where I have, as I've kind of delved into different businesses over the years. And I would say probably within the last month, I've decided to like lock in to the coaching business. And that wasn't an easy decision because I felt like up here, logically, I know there's other businesses that I've been putting a lot of time into over the years that have great earning potential. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, where I'm located in terms of that curve where you're going to see exponential growth. Logically, I feel like I'm closer in some of these other businesses, but spiritually, I just felt a lot more connected, and I just felt a pull to lock in on the coaching. So I was like, you know what? Let me do that. And from my personal experience just over these last few weeks, I found it really interesting that once I allowed myself to not have any expectations in these other businesses and I locked in with the coaching, the speed at which I'm moving has progressed a lot, and the perceived barriers that are in the way have started to dissipate.
You're talking
And I've
about for the other businesses or for
No, I'm
coaching?
talking about for coaching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about for coaching. So yeah, so for coaching, some of the perceived barriers that I have had have started to dissipate. The pace that I've been moving has started to quicken, and I've actually been able to start, like, a vision has started to be created. Whereas before, but when I wasn't allowing myself to fully tap into it, I didn't really have like a vision. It was like, I know this is something what I want to, I know this is something that I want to do. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I want it to look like. But I'm just going to put one foot instead in front of the other. But I found that since I've allowed myself to fully lock in, like, ideas have just been pouring in terms of things that I can do, the way that I can create the business, the name for the business, um, and how I can envision actually doing so many things in that realm. Whereas before, I just it's almost like a roof was taken off, and I can see so much more potential in terms of, like, and clarity in terms of, oh, this is where I can take this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, I didn't see that. And the only thing that changed was me allowing myself to, I think, start my path of allowing myself to become more obsessive, more hyper focused. And that has been kind of what my experience has been with it just over like the last 4 weeks or so.
Yeah. I think I think something that I start to see and is when you allow yourself to be super focused, hyper focused on something, you start to see everything in the world through that lens, and
Mm,
you can start. So you're talking about like the coaching and how you started connecting, what you're doing to other ideas, other aspects, or like even like the brand ideas. You're getting those brand ideas because your mind is in that space. Like you may be
mm,
driving down and you're looking at a mountain range and that mountain range inspires something relating to the
the
business,
thing.
because you're in that space where everything that you're consuming is through the lens of what it is that you're focused on. And yeah, when out of for me when I've been in that space, you can feel the insight, but you can also feel the connection to what it is that you're focused on, right?
Hmm.
Because you're seeing everything. Like I've seen you start to see everything through that through that lens. Everything in life starts to make sense through whatever the lenses that you're working on. If it's through your business, if it's through, music, if it whatever it is, things start to connect, and you start to make sense of why the things are working that way and how it can relate to what it is that you're doing. So yeah, the fact that you said, you were able to, or not able to, but in that space when you said, okay, I'm willing to delve into this and
Hmm.
be obsessed and allow this to be my hyper focus, and things just start accelerating because you are existing, you're allowing your mind to exist in that space fully, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
no distractions, no, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. No, I'm here. And when you're in that space, like you're saying, when the roof gets taken up, you're able to just connect everything to the source of what it is that you're doing. So that's the advantage of anybody that's like existing in a space where they're obsessed. Like I always go, like athletes are the easiest,
Hmm.
because they're just like, it's the easiest visual representation of it. Like if someone's an elite business person, man, woman, whatever, like there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. It's almost guaranteed that they're a hard worker, but you can't really see it as much
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
can see it when somebody drops 50 points in an NBA game. Okay, this guy's putting in work. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like almost anybody, when you listen to like a Kobe Bryant interview, for example, and you see how he connects like I was watching an interview with him where he was talking about on his fadeaway, his legs off balance. Like the reason why he sticks his leg out on his fadeaway is because he was watching National Geographic and he saw how cheetahs use their tails to keep balance. I'm like, bro, like what? What are we talking about? This guy watching the National Geographic and he's talking about he's watching that and his mind is so focused on getting better at basketball that
Yeah.
he's connecting that dot. He's like, oh, wait. This is how they move that fast. I'm like, why is their tail moving like this? Like I'm an athlete.
Mm.
You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So yeah, just I mean, obviously Kobe's a different level, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that you said that. I didn't know that you've like been feeling that over the last few weeks.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's real. It's real. And yeah, I don't know exactly where it's gonna allow me to end up, but it's been a very eye-opening experience. It's almost like it almost feels as if like the universe starts to work in your favor when you claim this is what I'm gonna do, and it's happening no matter what, and this is gonna be my focus. Like
And
it's
do you feel like you're at risk for burnout and when you've so this that's why I think like when I hear about the obsession connection to burnout, I don't necessarily know if it computes to me because I feel like when people exist in that space, they're actually less likely to get burnt out.
I think I think there's a huge I think yes, but the huge caveat is what does that look like for you? Because for me, if I'm equating obsession to hyper focus, like right now I'm not spending like 8 hours a day like I'm off work right now because I just had a baby. So but I'm not spending like 8, 12 hours a day just doing coaching stuff all day. Like for
Mm,
me, it's not, I'm still like right now I'm very much in, like dad mode and prioritizing all the family stuff, keeping the main thing. But my hyper focus in this season of my life right now looks like, okay, that 4 hours a day that I do have to work, I'm exclusively spending it on coaching, not
mm,
2 hours not an hour of coaching, an hour of forex, and 2 hours of like reading something unrelated. Like it's like, okay, for those 4 hours, like I'm focused on one thing. So I think
mm,
that's the caveat, because I think when people think obsession, and rightfully so, because if you're thinking and you're comparing yourself to a Kobe, for example, like you just said, so some people are at different levels. The Elon Musks, the people who are just spending ungodly amounts of time actually putting forth the input, you know what I mean, to
mm,
get the thing. And that definitely can lead to burnout. And I think even in sometimes, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, that might be necessary. There might be seasons in your life where you have to lock in and sacrifice being like, I know this isn't sustainable, but because I need to get to X, that's just what I have to do right now. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that at all. I think it's just being aware of what's realistic, and again, like knowing yourself. So I agree with what you're saying. I think the caveat is if you can find balance within that obsession, like, and balance not in terms of having to spread your attention and your energy across a whole bunch of different areas. I mean balance in terms of what's sustainable for you to actually put forth on a regular basis. I think that's really, really the key, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Um, yeah, I think one of the key, takeaways that hopefully, some of the listeners can get from this is, um, you don't always know what's going to be on the other side of committing to whatever that thing is. And that's the scary thing about it. If we knew what was on the other side, everyone would do it, but you don't know, and I think just my encouragement would just be like, if you're in a position, and people have different financial positions, people have different economic situations, and I want to be extremely respectful of that. But if you happen to be in a position where you can afford to go all in with something that lights your fire, that you get excited about when you wake up, that really makes you feel, that you feel passionate about, that you can see yourself wanting to do long term, and that you actually want to be great at, not good at, but something you actually want to be great at, and you're in a position to do that, why not just lock in and see what comes from it, you know?
Yeah, facts. You gotta go chase it.
Yeah, exactly. And you think about best case scenario and worst case scenario for a lot of people. If the worst case scenario is you locked in for years or whatever period of time, and you end up not getting to where you were hoping to get to, or you realize, yeah, this isn't for me, at least like, think about how many, like you said, you're talking about athletes. Think about how many athletes there are right now that are like our age, in their 30s, 40s, older than us, that are like, when they think about the opportunity that they had when they were at their peaks, when they were in high school, when they were in a position to really lock in, and they didn't, and they're walking around like angry old men and women saying, "Oh, I should have done this.
Yeah,
I could have been in I could have been in the NHL. I could have been in the NBA." It's like, if you locked in on that time, you would know one way or the other.
you would know. Yeah, you would be able to handle it. You wouldn't have the regret for sure. If it's something that
Agreed.
you feel like, you wouldn't have that regret, and the regret will kill you for sure.
That's facts.
Yeah,
That's facts. Yeah, but well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up.
yeah,
Um, thank you to all the listeners and viewers. We're new at this, but this is what our second live recorded episode. But yeah, we're excited. We're gonna get better and better, and yeah, we'll take it from there. And yeah, that's it.